Right.
All right, welcome to the City Council meeting for October 12th, 2020. I will do roll call by name. Alonso Castilla.
Councilor Castillo here.
Councilor Drago.
Councilor Drago present.
Councilor Inman.
Councilor Inman here.
Councilor Prachu.
Councilor Prachu here and working to restore my video.
And Council President Knudsen is here. No public forum with the recent adoption of the emergency declaration. Public comment on items not on the agenda. Meetings shall not allow for general public comments. All parties interested in providing general public comments will have the opportunity to do so in written form outside of a meeting in the manner dedicated for each individual public body. Is there any public comments that have been submitted, or is anybody there? Roberta.
No one's here and I have no comments. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item number 3, the Council President's report. So we have an item A, discussion of council vacancies. So as of September 30th, 2020, Mayor Richard Zettervall has resigned. As of this morning, Monday, October 12th, Martha McReynolds Jr. has resigned. I would just like to thank both Richard and Michelle for their service, and I just wish them well in their future endeavors. So at this point, I would like to ask council if we can move this discussion item to 7B on the agenda, because we have to have a vote on the acceptance of the resignations of our mayor and a councilor, and then we have to declare a vacancy, and then there might be possible motions regarding filling the mayor's position. So it's more of a council action item versus a report. So I just need council consent to add agenda item 7B. Is anybody in opposition? Otherwise, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so we will move that to 7B. The other item is the committee vacancies. There's a vacancy on the Airport Commission. We just need to give staff the okay to advertise the position as an open vacancy. And again, that's just a consensus from council that that position is open and we have a vacancy and we can advertise it. Council consent, okay? All right, so anybody that's interested in serving on the Airport Commission can contact Roberta Tharp, our city recorder, and get an application. And I believe that term starts in January 2021. The next item, I would like to add C regarding our work session for October 26th. I don't know if we have anything on the agenda, so I wanted to defer to Michelle Amberg and see if we need to have a work session or not.
Thank you, President Knudsen. We are, as you know, kind of in a state of flux right now. Not quite sure what direction we're going to go, and as far as filling the vacancies, what council will want to do regarding filling vacancies or appointing a mayor tonight. So anything that's on the work session, we could defer to the following work session. So if you would like to, one of the things that occurs to me is there is an election coming up in November, and the city council may choose to wait until and see what happens at that election in order to determine regarding whether to appoint a mayor or not appoint a mayor or continue on with the council president leading those meetings. You may wish to wait for that. And in that case, I would suggest that you do cancel the work session this month. But again, it's your decision on how you'd like to move forward.
So do we have any items on the agenda thus far for that work session?
I couldn't tell you right at the moment.
Okay.
Sorry.
But probably nothing too pressing that couldn't wait till a November work session?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I'll leave it to counselors. If you guys would like to have an October work session, we can go forward, or we can cancel the October work session and pick it up in November. Any thoughts? I can't hear you, Judy.
I vote to cancel it.
Alonzo or Kevin?
Without knowing if there's anything that was coming up or if there's something pressing, I certainly would be okay with going forward with a work session, but if not, I'm okay with canceling.
I'll,
Kevin and then Misty.
I guess I would weigh in and say that I guess it is kind of dependent on what we're going to do this evening. And so maybe the idea that maybe there might be another special council meeting, if we want to take any further action after tonight on any of items, or just wait. I don't know. So I would say with it being in flux, we might want to go ahead and
Go ahead and cancel. Sorry, you cut out there at the last minute.
yeah, I'm leaning towards that. Without knowing what other work we have that we could possibly be doing right now, I would mind going through and looking at the goals that we had set out for the beginning of the year and seeing what's left on that. So.
All right, Misty, and then it looks like Roberta has her hand up.
So I'm actually neutral for the October work session. I will not be in attendance. So that's a meeting that I will miss. So I think if it's pressing, like Councilor Prochu had mentioned, and there's some goals, then I think it would be important to continue. However, if it's not as important, to wait till November.
Okay. Roberta?
I believe the only thing that's on the November city council meeting is to award a bid for budgeting and planning software. So I don't know if you'd need to discuss that at the work session. That's somebody else's call.
President Knutson, I typically wouldn't bring that to a work session for discussion because that is a staff decision and that's a contract and I have the authority to execute those without your approval. So I think I need to talk to staff about even putting that on the city council agenda for next meeting. That's typically not something you would approve. So I need to find out why that's on the agenda.
Okay. So it sounds like we're kind of like split here. You guys are kind of neutral about it. So I'd say we keep it on, and if there's nothing to discuss, then we can cancel. How late can we cancel that?
We can cancel it. Well, actually, let's see, October 26th is when it would be. So
Right.
you would be getting your packets on the 23rd. So we could probably, that means next week we need to review. That would be typically, I would meet with the mayor on the 21st. And we would put together the agenda for the work session. So I can't think of anything offhand. And also note that there will only be 4 of you at that meeting. And I wouldn't want to set any sort of goals for next year with Councilor Inman not present because she
Right.
will be continuing on city council. So I would advise against any sort of significant sort of actions or discussions to take place without a council member present, since there's only 5 of you now on council, and Councilor Inman has already requested to be excused.
Okay. So I guess having hearing that, I'm going to defer to Kevin and Alonzo and Misty because my term isn't continuing for next year and neither is Judy's. And so if you guys are going to discuss something that's important, then I agree that I think all of you should be present. I think, I'm not sure who had their hand up first, Alonzo and then Kevin.
No, I was just gonna say what you just said, Amy, you know, without knowing. If we have something, work to do, I'm all for it, and if not, it can wait.
Okay.
So,
Kevin.
The only other thing I was going to add is that we probably will be canceling December. Usually, I think we do. I know that's kind of in the middle of Christmas and New Year's. So that would leave November as our only other work session. So something to keep in mind. At this point, without knowing what we have to look towards doing and knowing that we may have possibly another meeting council later if we need to, maybe we should go ahead and consider.
All right. So that's the consensus, is that we will cancel October work session. Good. All right, the next item is correspondence. Is there any questions, comments? Alonzo, is your hand up to, okay.
it wasn't, but but I was just a little curious if Michelle could share with us the response to Mr. Edward. I believe I know what the response was on some of it, but not the correspondence in regards to the charge where he says there was no usage. Can you share that with us, Michelle?
His water bill is got two parts, just like everybody's utility bill. The utility bill has a user fee and then an actual consumption fee. And so if you do not use any water, you still pay the user fee. And the user fee is designed to collect money to continue to improve the infrastructure that brings the water to your house. We all share that cost. That includes the piping and the water plant and things like that. And Cliff can give you a much better breakdown, or Jim can give you a much better breakdown of the particulars. But if you're using zero water, you're still using infrastructure because you still have the infrastructure to your house. The option is to actually have your meter removed, and Mr. Hamilton could do that, and that would bring his water bill down to zero if he did that. There is a cost to remove a meter and also to reinstall it. That is significantly more than the cost of leaving the meter in place.
Thank you, Michelle. I just think that's important to anybody that may be listening.
All right. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to consent calendar. All items listed are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the councilor requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Does anybody have any removals, amendments, comments? All right, I'm entertaining a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
All right, there's
Second.
a motion. Is there a second? Sorry, Kevin.
Second.
All right. They'll proceed to vote by roll call. Councilor Castilla,
Councilor Castillo votes yes.
Councilor Drago,
Councilor Drago, yes.
Councilor Inman,
Counselor Inman, yes.
Councilor Prochu,
Councilor Prachu, yes.
and Councilor Knudsen votes yes. Moving on to the administrative report. I believe that's either Manager Amberg or City Recorder Roberta.
I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay.
So the first report is the September 2020 bills. I'm assuming if you have any questions, our finance director can address those if you have any questions on the bills. Not hearing any. We'll go to report B, the Lane County Sheriff's Call for Service reports. And I know we have Sergeant Denham available to answer any questions you may have on that report.
Does anybody have any questions, comments? Counselor Inman?
Yes, I have a, I guess, comment / question. The incident type under property, that's a pretty high calls to case number. You had 21 calls and 15 case numbers. Something happened?
No, that's pretty typical if you go back and look historically at the property crimes, because people generally only call in property crimes when there's actually a report to take. So such as somebody's car gets broken into, a car gets stolen, somebody breaks into their house, or fraud. We've had several elderly fraud events recently, especially with the COVID and other types of issues. That's been running pretty rampant. So those will always generate a case number because those get a report, especially if it has to do with a bank or a piece of property. The only ones that property crimes that we get that sometimes don't result in a case number, which is probably the remaining 6, are trespass calls. So if we can go and we can resolve the trespass without citing anybody or anything like that, then that will go away as just a call. But all of the rest of those pretty much will almost always generate a report. So that's how we get those case numbers. Whereas in public order, those are generally suspicious vehicles, suspicious people, things like that, which very rarely ever generate a case number for us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Counselor Pocho?
I would usually ask my typical question, but I think we know that September wasn't typical. So with the fires and all, I was just kind of wondering if any of that impacted things for you around town, and especially as it pertains to any of our homeless or transient population.
It didn't really hit our particular population that badly. They didn't seem to miss a beat. Yeah, the smoke was a little bit much for them, I think. I think some of them went to ground for a little while and went to the places they normally hang out rather than go and sit out on the patio. We did have some people come into town that were displaced by the fire, that were motorhome type driven. So we were attempting not to really enforce the motorhome ordinance at that time. Some people had invited people to come, hey, we'll put the motorhome out, you can stay, you can bring your motorhome and stay in front of our house. So we were trying to kind of respect that and not be fervent on it. We had a couple of motorhomes that rolled in and stayed over like in the pullout area by Bald Knob and that kind of things. They were just there temporarily until they could find a place to land. So we kind of just took that to heart and didn't want to go and attack people that had just been placed from upriver. So we did that. Other than that, we didn't have a whole lot of effects. A lot of people just kind of hunkered down in their house during the fire, which was good because our guys were running around trying to help everybody else since we were all hands on deck for several weeks there. We were working 6 days a week at 12-hour days. So everybody was doing that across the board, the entire main office. So, and many people were working overtime on top of that. So we're all kind of getting back to a little bit to normal now.
Well, I want to thank you all for your service during that time. That was just an incredible response just by the community at large, Lane County and the outside agencies came out and such. But yeah, thank you for all that you guys did with that.
Yep, Crestwell deputies stepped up very well to help with all of the South Lane type calls for the rest of the county, and to make sure they were covering down on everything going on in Crestwell. And then luckily, Crestwell citizens stayed calm during the entire fires, and we didn't have a lot of looting or anything like that. which wasn't the case upriver. Upriver is was getting hammered pretty bad. It's kind of sad to see how people behave in a national emergency like that. Kind of bewildering to us, but you will notice your deputies running around with a little bit of scruff or facial hair or something like that. The sheriff has challenged us that if he opens up No Shave November for the first time in my 23 years of being here, for a donation to Kids First, the Kids First Center, which is our child advocacy center, we're allowed to grow a modicum of facial hair. So some of us have gotten permission from our spouses to go for it.
You're getting an early start.
Well, he made it October 1st through December 31st. To help those young
Y'all
people
gonna look pretty scruffy for Christmas. Maybe you'll be Santa Claus if it falls in.
Yeah, it's amazing how great it is.
All right, I think Alonzo has his hand up. You're still muted.
Sorry. So I think Sergeant Denham just answered my question. It seems like the numbers for this month were down compared to the last 3 months. So was that a result from people hunkering down and you guys having to go be pulled elsewhere?
Yeah, so what we were trying to do was not do as much proactive pullover cars and all of that kind of stuff, so that we could stay available to help with actual calls for emergency service. So that drives that down. You don't have as many warrant arrests. You don't have as many other types of calls that are deputy driven and active patrol driven. So, and a lot of people were hunkering down to stay out of the ash and the smoke and all of that for quite a while. So that did drive those numbers down.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you guys for your work.
All right. Hearing no other questions or comments, I'll turn it back to Manager Amber.
Thank you. You have the city attorney's report for this month, and that's always pretty straightforward. On the code enforcement, I just wanted to also stress that this past month, code enforcement was not ticketing folks who were using RVs in the street due to the fires upriver. So he did an excellent job of being proactive on that, and I think he did a great job of working with our deputies as well. And then the final item is building permit reports. So, and that ends the administrative report.
I think Kevin has his hand up for a question or comment.
I do. Just a quick question regarding code enforcement. So I'm going to try to be as delicate about this as possible because it's a serious issue. But so the median strips that are between the sidewalk and the street. So I think that the homeowner is supposed to maintain it, but it's owned by the city. I'd like some understanding on that. But we have a particular issue over in my area, and because I'm neighborhood watch, currently I'm in charge of that too. And so where the dogs just do their business, the homeowner just lets their dogs do their business, and so it accumulates and becomes a nuisance and an issue. And so there was a call, I think they made a call, didn't hear back, wound up down at City Hall, talked again about this, and they were told that basically if they were going to do any or take any action on this, that they would need to basically file and then go to court over it. Am I correct on that? Do you got to go to court because the neighbor's dog is doing their thing and they're not taking care of it?
Yeah, that would be cited into municipal court. So they would need to file, unless it's actually observed by our code enforcement officer as a dog doing its business and the owner walking away from it. Our code enforcement officer can't just look at a pile of dogs duty and figure out who it belongs to. So, yeah, it would have to be a person who observed it and make a report. The report would be filed, and the owner would be summoned to appear in municipal court on that charge, and that's how that works.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood that clearly. And, you know, it seems to be a conversation down lately, so I thought I'd look into that one. So.
Glad I could help clear it up.
Thank you.
Sergeant Denham.
I think I can clarify that a little bit. So if you're using that as an explanation to somebody, officers by law in Oregon cannot issue citations on violations unless they happen in that officer's presence. So whether it's code enforcement officer, it's us. The only time I can issue a traffic ticket for something that didn't happen in front of me is if I'm investigating a crash. So all the people that you hear on social media and other places saying, we'll get their information and their license plate, and we're going to send it to the cops, and they can go give them a ticket, we can't do that. If the legislature changes that at some point in the future, we probably can, but that's a state law that we can't get around. And the same goes for code enforcement. That's why the citizens can do, it's a citizen's complaint which results in arrest. So they bring in a complaint, we go out and issue the citation on their behalf, and then they're the ones who, if the person takes a trial, has to go in, and they're the ones who saw it, they're the witness, they're the prosecutor for all intents and purposes.
So the same neighbor has more than enough. I don't even know what the allowable ducks are, but they've got ducks, they've got a rooster, they've got a whole farm going on over there. I don't even know how they get away with that, but I guess maybe a conversation with the neighbors may be a good place to start. I might do that. Thank you.
So that's a whole nother issue, actually, whether or not they're having too many animals, and that's something that you can report on our iWork system, and our code enforcement officer can go out and investigate that. They're not supposed to have a rooster within city limits, and there is a limit on the number of ducks and chickens a person can have. So my recommendation would be to have someone file a complaint on the iWork system, which you can find on our city website. And the reason why we ask them to do that is so that we have a record of it, and then that record goes into our system for developing a tracking mechanism for the complaint. So that's our process.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments regarding the administrative report, we will move on to council action items. First being Resolution 2020-23, a resolution amending the City of Crystal System Development Charges, SDCs, for streets. And I believe this is Finance Director Jim Piper.
Thank you, Councilor. President Knudsen, City Councilors, before you have a resolution to amend the Crestwell System Development Charges for transportation. City staff identified a calculation error in the street SDCs when trying to calculate an SDC for a commercial enterprise in town, and the SDC charge was extremely high. What caused that error was there wasn't enough credits given for diverted or bypass trips, and once that was corrected, we came up with a more reasonable STC charge. So what you have is an amendment to just the street SDCs, and to date there have been no charges taken on the new SDCs, so we'd just like to clean it up moving forward.
Maddie
Council
Phillips.
have questions?
I think Maddie has a comment or something to add.
Councilors, I just to support Jim's amendment here, I just thought I'd explain a little bit about what a pass-by trip is, just to give you some context. A great example is when you go when you go out on a trip and your destination is a retail store or gas station, like my lawnmower ran out of gas and I have to go to the gas station to buy another gallon of gas to fill up the lawnmower. That's a dedicated trip. However, there are many instances where we'd be driving to the grocery store and realize, shoot, I'm out of gas or I'm nearly out of gas and I better pull in to fill up before I run out. That's called a pass-by trip. And so retail and commercial outlets have this opportunity, have a built-in discount with SDC methodologies to accommodate for those opportunistic or happenstance. In this case, they're called pass-by trips.
Thank you, Maddie.
I just thought it would be nice to have a little bit more understanding of what that looks like in real life, so that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, we always need context.
Absolutely. So just think about those trips that aren't necessarily, you're not destined for the gas station, but should it be on your way and you're on your way to somewhere else, it's a pass-by trip.
Got it. Any other questions or comments from council? I think Judy's dog has a question. Seeing none, then I'm entertaining a motion. Councilor Castillo.
I move that the City Council adopt Resolution 2020-23, a resolution amending the City of Creswell System Development Charges, SDCs, for streets as presented or amended.
I think it's as presented. Is there a second?
Sorry.
Do we have a second? Councilor Prochu, I think, raised his hand. Could you say that again, please? Your mic is cutting out.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure Roberta gets it all. So we have a motion, a second, and we'll proceed to vote. Councilor Castilla?
Councilor Castilla votes yes.
Councilor Draco?
Councilor Drago votes yes.
Councilor Inman?
Councilor Inman votes yes.
Councilor Prochu?
Councilor Prochu votes yes.
And Councilor Knutson votes yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
So now we move on to 7B. So the first thing we need to do, according to our city charter, is we have to accept the resignation and declare a vacancy for each of the positions. And I believe this calls for a motion and a vote. Correct, Roberta?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if somebody would make a motion to accept the resignation of Richard Zettervall, and then we will vote. And then somebody else needs to make a motion for accepting the resignation of Councilor Martha McReynolds, and then we'll vote. Councilor Drago.
I move to accept the resignation of Richard Zettervall.
There's a motion on the floor. Oh, sorry. Michelle Amberg.
The important part of the motion is and declare a vacancy.
Oh, and declare the vacancy.
Okay. I move to accept the resignation of Richard Zettervall and declare the vacancy.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Castilla. Is there any other questions or comments? Councilor Prochu?
I will have to say that it's with great reluctance that we do this evening. I wish that we could not do this or say no. I don't think that there's a way that we could not do this, but so I just want to recognize Mayor Zettervald's service to Cresswell. He can hold his head up and be proud of what he's done here, and that's really the comment I would make this evening.
All right. Seeing no other comments or questions, we'll proceed to vote. Councilor Castilla.
Councilor Castillo votes yes.
Councilor Drago.
Councilor Drago votes yes.
Councilor Inman.
Councilor Inman votes yes.
Councilor Procio.
Councilor Procio votes yes.
And Councilor Knudsen votes yes. All right, so we have to also make a motion and a declaration of a vacancy for Councilor McReynolds' open seat. Does somebody want to make a motion? Councilor Procio.
Also, with great reluctance, I will make the motion to accept the resignation of Councilor Martha McReynolds Jr. and declare a vacancy.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second. Councilor Inman.
Councilor Inman. Any other questions or comments? Then we'll proceed to vote. Councilor Castilla.
Councilor Castillo votes yes.
Councilor Drago.
Councilor Drago votes yes.
Councilor Inman.
Councilor Inman votes yes.
Councilor Procio.
Councilor Procio votes yes.
Councilor Knudsen votes yes. Motion passes. So now we discuss filling the mayor vacancy. And so I discussed this with Manager Amberg and our city recorder, and we have a few options on how to proceed. We can leave the mayor position vacant and have council president assume duties of the mayor until the end of the term, which is December 31st, 2020. Per our city charter, the president presides in the absence of the mayor and acts as mayor when the mayor is unable to perform duties. So that is our first option, that council president could step in and run the meetings. We do not fill the mayor position, and the new mayor will come on in January 2021. Option 2 is to fill the mayor vacancy. Per city charter, a council vacancy will be filled by appointment by a majority of the remaining council members. The appointee's term of office will run from appointment until expiration of the term of office of the last person elected to that office. So again, if we appoint somebody to this position, their term would be up December 31st, 2020. In order to fill this position, we would have to advertise the position, we would have to review the applications, and then we'd have to interview the applicants, which takes time, but that's how we have to do it for all of our committees and our commissions, and that's how we would do it to fill the mayor's seat as well. Or you can fill it with a counselor position with consensus to appoint a counselor to that position. Again, that counselor would give up their seat on council and become mayor, and their term would expire December 31st, 2020. So those are our options. I guess
President, may I
is that Manager Amberg?
Yeah, it is. It occurs to me that there is an election coming up before the next city council meeting. And what council may want to do is defer the appointment of a mayor and see how that election goes. And then at I believe it's the November 12th city council meeting, appoint the person who wins the election to the mayoral position, so that they would serve that night, November, and then December, and then, of course, take their elected position in January. So that may be a choice that you might be willing to look at. As far as the council seat that's open, you could do the same thing, but the problem is you're going to have 3 or 4 people well, 3 people who will be eligible for that one seat for a temporary time. So I think that gets a lot messier. But so my recommendation would be to leave the council seat open, but consider appointing whoever wins the mayoral race to be mayor for the remainder of the term. It's just something I put out there for your consideration.
All right. Are there any comments from council at this point? Councilor Castilla and then Drago.
Because of the lengthy process of appointment, I would certainly be okay with option 1.
Okay. Councilor Drago?
I would want to know what you and Kevin would think, because you guys are the ones that are up for mayor. And would you guys be willing or want to step up early? That kind of stuff. I mean, is it an option? Would you rather wait? I would like to know what your guys' opinions are, because you're the ones that are actually in that position to take over.
I'll defer to Kevin first and then I'll go. You're still muted, Kevin.
I finally did it to myself. Yeah, this is a touchy one. And I was almost wondering if I needed to recuse myself from the vote, if that's the correct word, or the action and stuff like that. I actually am going to defer to the other members of the council on this one. I would not turn down the nomination, but at the same time, I think that I think we could let the voters choose, and so that's.
Well, I believe the voters will choose in November. The voters will choose the future mayor, but I think it's up to council to choose who presides and who acts as mayor until the end of the year, because we still have a few meetings to get through. So I don't think Michelle's suggesting that whoever wins the election. I mean, I think she's suggesting whoever wins the election just becomes the appointed mayor, just to get a jump on starting that mayor position and leading council through the end of the year and then going forward. I don't think it's meant to put voters' votes down or dismiss that, because it's impossible to do that. So, I mean, I guess my question is, Kevin, do you want to do that? Do you want to step in? If you win the election, do you want to come in and step in November versus January?
Could I add something to this?
Yes, Michelle.
The reason why I think it would be a good idea to have someone as mayor until the end of the year is that we do have orientations that need to be done. And typically the mayor and I would do the orientations together. And I think that that would be much more effective with whomever is going to be the mayor in 2021 than an interim type person in that position. So, and in fact, in this situation where we look at who's elected and put them in as mayor, it's not going to affect the election at all, because the person put into the position will not be there until after the election is complete. So I could use some help though on, getting agendas ready, and also on the orientation for new counselors, which the orientation occurs before the first meeting in January. So it will be in November and December. So, so that's something to consider, and why I brought it up.
Judy, do you have your hand up again?
I don't. So, sorry about that. I didn't take it
That's
down.
okay.
But Michelle,
That's
you
all right.
made a really good point. So.
Misty, do you have any comments, questions?
Well, I think Councilor Drago brought up a good point on the comfortability of you and Councilor Pochu. However, I think that number 2 appointment would be a lot of time and energy from now till December. So I think the election and that individual that is elected mayor to be starting in November makes sense to me.
All right, Councilor Castillo?
Yes, with what I just heard Michelle say, yes, I think that is a great idea, and that's the way it should happen. That we move with option one until the election. And
Okay.
provided either one of you are okay with that, which I don't see why you wouldn't, and then make that happen.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to make Michelle's job harder, and not having a mayor and down a counselor, we're slim pickings here, guys. So we kind of got to step up and just get it done. And I'm okay with running the meetings until I don't need to anymore. So if we want to go with, yeah, because our next meeting is November 12th, so that will be after the election. So if we would just want to wait for the election results and whoever gets elected as mayor then steps in as the mayor appointment, or just steps in as, how would that work, Michelle or Roberta? They would be appointed mayor then?
After the election, the city council would officially have to have a motion to appoint whoever they were going to appoint as mayor. Yes. And
so would that person still run that first meeting in November then?
It would probably procedurally would be opened by the president, and then the motion and the vote would be taken, and
Okay.
then you could, then because you both are already sworn in and you're already fulfilling your duties, it would be a simple matter of just handing the gavel over to someone else or keeping the gavel, however that worked.
Okay.
And I do think you need to leave it. I don't think you have time to go through a process to fill the city councilor vacancy though.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to talk about the council vacancy next. So I was just trying to figure out what we're going to do for the mayor, and then we can talk about what we want to do with the council position. So if that's the direction we want to go, council president acts as interim, as a meeting facilitator until after the election results. And then at that first meeting on November 12th, I will either hand it over or keep it until the end of the year. Is that correct?
That would be correct. And I think I hear a consensus for that. So I don't think there needs to be a vote right now.
Okay.
We'll just leave it the way it is. And then we'll have the vote at the November city council meeting. So
Okay.
there's no action tonight. We'll just continue on with the procedures as outlined in the city charter.
Okay. So then moving on to the council vacancy, again, Martha McReynolds' position term expires December 31st, 2020. We can go through the whole thing of getting applicants and appointing that position, but I think Michelle's right. When we go, if we try to do the route that we're doing now, we would have to interview those three counselors that win that seat, and then we'd have to choose from one of them to be appointed early. It just seems like a lot of red tape and bureaucracy to go through. So, I mean, but again, it's up to council on how they want to proceed. Misty?
Additionally, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Additionally, that person would have to be sworn in. So we'd have to have a swearing in ceremony in November or December.
Right. All right, Misty, then Alonzo.
Okay, so I think it would probably be the easiest to leave it vacant until the January for the individuals that will be voted on, and then they can start that fresh start. I think it would be a lot of time and energy to try to get someone between now and then.
Okay. Alonzo?
No, I just totally agree with what Missy said. It may even create some kind of awkwardness through that process, so we just leave it alone.
All right. So I think we have consensus to leave the council seat open. Uh-oh. Somebody's sharing their screen with us. Right? Does everybody else see that as well?
I
That
do
might have
too.
been me, but I think am I fixing it? I don't know.
Do you want some help?
It says Armand down at the bottom, so can these?
It's right next to the microphone icon, so it's a little box with the arrow pointing up. If you just click it again, I think it'll turn itself off.
There we go.
Oh, right on. It happens all the time at work.
Nice work, Kevin.
All right, so we have, does everybody have everything they need, Roberta, Michelle?
Yes, I believe that we have enough information to be able to prepare the November agenda for you. And we will, I think leaving that position open is good, because actually there will be 2 vacancies, because either you or Councilor Prochu will be mayor. So that will open their seat as well. So that would make you'd have to appoint 2 people
Right.
to the 2 positions. So I think this is much cleaner. I'm actually pretty used to working with a 5-member council. So this works fine.
Yeah, I don't think we had a full council. We didn't have a full council when I came on. So it wasn't until Misty, I think, then we had a full one. But okay, so I think that concludes everything then. Upcoming meetings, we will not have a work session, and we'll see you all in a month. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thanks, Amy, for doing all
Have a
that.
good night.
Counselor.